and welcome to The Resource, the podcast propelling employer brands to recruit smarter and retain better. I'm your host, Priscilla Peters.
And I'm your other host, Scott Dismuke, and we want to thank you for joining us today because in today's episode, we're going to be sharing the recording from our Q3 2025 Data Rundown webinar, where we unpack the latest recruiting data, economic trends, and retention insights from Q3 of this wonderful year that is 2025 that cannot get over soon enough.
I know, right? Yes. How are you, by the way, friend? Last time we did a data rundown, you were at the beach. I was solo. I was flying solo. Thank goodness I didn't burn the place down.
Yeah, you did good, but I'm not going to lie. I do not feel bad about that one bit. You did a fantastic job, but at the end of the day, if I had the choice between being on the beach and doing the podcast, I'm probably going to pick the beach.
I don't take it personal. And last time on our last episode, we talked about how we were going to hang out for a Razorback weekend. We indeed did. Some things will be left outside the podcast because we had a lot of fun. I'm just kidding.
We did have a lot of fun.
The game was not part of the fun, not at all. But you'll have that. Our coach just happened to get fired the day after.
Right after that game. I don't know. Was that our fault?
Probably. It could
have
been.
It was. We had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a great time. And we got to hang out with your son and some of his friends.
Yes.
And that was fun too. So always a good time. We hung out and did a little Razorback weekend. And even though we didn't win, it was a lot of fun. Speaking of football season, quite the coach carousel situation going on. So we'll just see how that plays out.
Hey, I will tell you the best job in the world to have right now is a college football coach. You get paid millions and millions of dollars to not coach.
Yeah, you just guess what? We're going to fire you and we're going to give you tens of millions of dollars. Thank you for your time. Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice?
I could live that way. I mean, I don't want to get fired, but if they paid me a lot, I'd consider it maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy. It's going to be interesting. But listen, we're ready for basketball season. As Razorback fans, that's what we're saying now is we're ready for basketball.
That's all we have.
All right. So this episode is like Scott said, is our Q3 data rundown. So we're excited to share that with you. We're going to dive in and you can hear all about data that came out of Q3. We kind of teased a little bit of the data from our upcoming driver survey, which we'll be sharing more of that on the podcast as well. So here is our Q3 data rundown. Our first kind of section of data is economic and industry data. And so the first thing we wanted to share with you just was that 56% of drivers say they are currently looking for a job. We recently just closed our driver survey. That's going to be releasing very soon, probably next week or maybe the week after. But in the next couple of weeks, you will be receiving that. We just closed it. So we have some fresh data from that we wanted to share with you. And unfortunately, this was the highest percentage that we have on record since we've been doing these driver surveys and asking this question. So if you're asking yourself, why is retention going up? Or if if turnover is going up at your carrier, this might be why. For whatever reason, it seems like drivers in the market are just getting a little antsy and some are wanting to make a move. So it's a good time to really keep your eye on retention and your current drivers with that many drivers saying that they are currently looking for a job. Also, one of the things that really popped up for us in this driver survey was this whole idea of home time and local jobs specifically. And so 61% of drivers said they would prefer a local driving job with slightly lower pay if it meant being home more often. And so the reason we asked this question is because we had so many clients saying, man, we are competing for drivers with local jobs more than ever. Some of our clients and some of the carriers that we talk to in the industry don't offer local jobs. Maybe they have dedicated opportunities or regional opportunities. Many of you have OTR opportunities that don't really offer any kind of daily home time. And so you're really competing with lots of local jobs. And so drivers are saying they actually prefer that even if they get paid a little less. So it's something to keep in mind just as you're looking at, the way you run your operations, but also like how you pay your drivers and all of that fun stuff as well. So just something to kind of share with your folks at your carrier. Also, in our latest carrier survey that we did, 54% of carriers said that what they're calling short term drivers that are quote unquote open to work are making it really difficult to recruit and retain. So these drivers that are just kind of always on when it comes to, am I open to work? Yeah, I'm always open to work. And so I think from a retention standpoint, that's one of the things with your current drivers you have to work on, but also set up processes and technology within your recruiting department that help you really help your recruiters focus on the high intent drivers and not the drivers who are just going to kind of churn and burn. And so that is something that was interesting that came out of our carrier survey that we wanted to share as well. Also, from our carrier survey, 33% of carriers said that their driver turnover has increased year over year from 2024 to 2025. So, again, that kind of mirrors the data that we had that came out of the driver survey, where they said more drivers than ever said that they were looking for a job. So, again, just keeping your eye on retention, making sure and Scott's going to have some great information to share regarding that here in a minute. And then we have some other driver data at the end that kind of touches on that as well. So, one other thing that came out of economic and industry data was, I know many of you have heard about the FMCSA emergency order. They announced that they are requiring states to immediately stop issuing or renewing non domiciled CDLs, which kind of begs the question like, how many of those types of drivers are in the market today? It's about 200,000. The government's estimating that it will take about 2 years to kind of that whole process to, pan out as renewals come up and things like that. But it's looking like it's going to impact about 200,000 CDL holders, which could dramatically impact the driver pool. Matter of fact, yesterday, again, I was telling you earlier, I'm here at ATA, and ATA's chief economist, Bob Costello, spoke yesterday morning, and someone asked this question, like, what do you see this impact? And he said it's going to be significant. I mean, when you look at an already shrinking driver pool with age and retirements and the drug and alcohol clearinghouse and just all of those factors together, this is definitely going to have an impact. So obviously it's something we're keeping our eyes on. We know you guys are keeping your eyes on it as well. And then wanted to just give you some company driver pay trends from Fleet Intel. This is a 3-year company driver weekly pay trend to just look at from 2022 to 2025. Remember, 2021 and 2022, we had lots of driver pay spikes, right? You guys remember you were increasing pay. It was like this, almost like this war, this battle for driver pay in the market. And so we have seen that really flatten out. Obviously, the way the economy's been, the way freight volumes have been, there hasn't really been a need to really raise driver pay again significantly. But you can see it's remained even by driver type. Whether they're driving flatbed, tanker, van, you could just see kind of how that's remained flat. But we just thought, again, you might want to see that. You might want to look at it just to benchmark about against what your pay looks like today. Again, this is company driver weekly pay averages. So that's what that is. All right, next we're going to move on to our advertising and marketing section. Now, this section, a lot of this data comes obviously from us at Conversion, but we do have some exclusive benchmarking data that we will be releasing to our Conversion clients today. I know there's some of you here on the webinar today that are not Conversion clients, but we have some great data to share with you as well. But as a Conversion client, we do have some exclusive benchmarking data related to cost per hire benchmarks, cost per lead, leads per hire, leads per full app, cost per full app, all that fun stuff. So you will be getting that in your inbox later today. So stay tuned for that. if you're a conversion client. But we do have some data to share. So overall, the best performing Q3 strategies during the third quarter for what we track touch points and hires, just because we really believe in kind of multi-touch attribution and making sure that we know that multiple sources do touch a hire. And so SEM Interactive, which is your kind of search engine marketing that we look at, think about Indeed, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, those types of sources. SEM Aware is more top of funnel, so think Google in that scenario. Social advertising, primarily Facebook and Instagram there. And we'll talk more about these strategies and things that are doing well. But the number one tool, the number one piece of technology that really touched more hires than any other for Q3 was Lead Assist. And we're going to talk about that a little more as we go through some of this data. So Lead Assist uses AI automation to help nurture leads, qualifies the leads, and then make sure that it's nurturing just the qualified leads. Obviously, we don't want to send you leads that are not qualified. And so it does a really good job of making sure and doing some of that work without your recruiters having to necessarily get involved. And so 24% more full applications were delivered from Lead Assist AI automation in Q3 versus Q2. So that was interesting. It's just kind of basically helping nurture more and more of those leads, those short forms to full applications. Coming very soon, we are releasing Lead Assist 3.0. You'll be hearing a lot more about that, especially if you're a conversion client. But this will include an agentic add-on. So your customized AI recruiting agent, we are in beta right now. It's going very well. We are seeing the AI agents connect with 70% of qualified drivers. So they're connecting qualified leads only with AI agents that are then beginning to nurture those leads and get to the full application. So it's going very well. Exciting technology that we're kind of be releasing very soon. Lead Assist has also shown impressive results in kind of just conversion rate. So I just wanted to show you like how that's improving from June, July, and August as we're looking back on some of the activity that went on in Q3. Again, we're trying to make sure that the technology is able to be used for your recruiters to focus on those high intent drivers that you already have a full application from, processing those, really selling those, to be honest, to get them closed and into orientation for you. And then here's a case study that we had from our friends at Tyson. And here's some results that you can see. So we can kind of talk about the technology all day, right? Like we could say, tell you all these amazing things that Lead Assist does, but at the end of the day, it's really what is the outcome and why does it matter to you? And so this is just some things. If you're looking at, man, I'm really struggling to get more full apps or just kind of close the gap on some of my weekly hire goals and things like that, or I really want to increase my recruiter calls. There are technology and things that we can do to help you do that, where you don't have to actually add headcount to your recruiting department. The way we always like to say it is you work smarter. And so this is just an example of how Tyson is doing that. So we wanted to kind of share that with you just so you could get an idea of how that actually impacts you at your carrier. Another thing we've really been keeping our eye on is the way that drivers search and how that is actually changing. So even you and I, in our daily kind of internet lives, if you will, as we're searching, one of the things you might be noticing is that many of your searches are not ending in a click any longer. And what I mean by that is whenever you, like, let's say that I do a Google search. In most cases today, I'm going to get an AI summary back from Google. So Gemini is going to give me an AI summary of what I searched. And in many cases, I don't necessarily need to click. I just need to see the information. Now, if I'm interested in something that comes up, I'm going to click, right? But one of the things that we are really looking at, we have a team that's been working on this. We now have an offering related to it, is how drivers are searching, how that impacts job search. And so at the end of the day, from a carrier standpoint, what you need to be aware of is that this is changing. There is a shift happening. and it's happening really quite quickly. 2% of job searches today are happening through GPTs. So that just means outside of your traditional Indeed or Google, or there are actually job searches happening through GPTs. Now, it was 0% last year. It's expected to be 10% by the end of the year. So it just gives you an idea of kind of how fast and furious this is moving. So you really need a GPTO strategy for any landing pages that you have for your driver recruiting sites, for your corporate website. We can do an audit for you where we can give you a GPTO audit, and it will tell you, here's your AI visibility score to just see like where you are today. So if you're interested in that, talk to your account executive, talk to one of our sales folks. Either way, it's something for you and your teams to start thinking about, looking at, as this all changes, and it's changing so fast. We just want to make sure everybody's really kind of focused on that and how it's going to really impact you and recruiting, your employer brand, and all that fun stuff. We also have some social media trends. Just want to give you an update on some things that are happening social media wise. Facebook, the news feed and Facebook Reels, those were still number one and number two for driver lead volume in Q3. Reels was number one last quarter, so those kind of flipped. But at the end of the day, these are the best placements that are producing the most results for carriers on Facebook today. And really, the story this tells us is that video is really important. If you're going to be advertising on Facebook, you need to have a strategy for Reels, and that's really where you need to think about your video content. Also, driver messages, we saw a significant growth in drivers using Messenger to communicate with fleets, and so that's something else that we just want you to be aware of. What is your social monitoring strategy? Are you looking at that? Do you have someone that monitors that? Or do you have lead assist in place when drivers do begin to chat with you over Messenger? Are you able to really respond to them and engage with them in a quick and easy way for your recruiting team? And then also we saw calls pick up from social strategy. A lot of this may be related to lead assist and virtual recruiter, but we are seeing calls pick up as well from social strategy. So that's something to kind of keep your eye on as well. And then we did have some updates that are coming out from Meta that we're just kind of providing this information to you so that you kind of know what's going on. Meta did recently reintroduce jobs into their Facebook marketplace. They seem to be emphasizing these more on the local job front. Again, we're kind of keeping an eye on it, seeing how we can use it in our strategy. That's something we will be looking at. Also, they announced that users will begin to be seeing ads based on interactions with Meta's AI powered bot. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how all of that plays out. And then they also shared some developments where they are boosting Reels engagement on Facebook, which really just tells us like they're investing there. So you should too, from a strategy standpoint, because that's really, as I said earlier, what's driving moving the needle a lot as far as that's concerned. So now I am going to turn it over to Scott Dismuke. Scott's going to take us through some driver retention strategy and kind of tell us what's going on from that standpoint.
Awesome. Thanks, Priscilla. Unfortunately, when people are talking right now, we're not getting a lot of good news. Priscilla went over some of what's going on with the driver survey. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of the ongoing trend, or at least it has been the last couple of months. The main theme that we saw in Q3 really continues to revolve around one word, and that's uncertainty. I've told Priscilla numerous times, if you listen to our podcast, if I hear the word uncertainty one more time, it will not be soon enough. I am so done with the word uncertainty, but that seems to be the word of the day, seems to be the word of the year, and potentially the word of the last couple of years. So many of you, as we know, are all still trying to do more with less. One of the best ways I can tell you right now to cut costs during this time is to reduce turnover. What we saw in Q3 is equipment issues rose to the new year-to-date high and remains the top complaint. Compensation issues were roughly flat overall, but we did see a big spike in miles driven frustration, which probably is not to be surprised. but that has dominated the mix within the kind of compensation issues. Operational issues ticked down quarter over quarter, but we did see a big jump in loading and unloading delays that we'll touch on here in a second. But as Priscilla kind of mentioned earlier, based on the feedback that we're getting from drivers, as you saw from those that are saying that they are currently actively looking for a job, we are seeing all signs pointing to a significant driver churn. When, if, as the economy improves, hopefully it's more when, we are seeing some significant signs that are kind of pointing to that driver churn. We've kind of been seeing it over the last year. We're seeing turnover go up, and I think the results of the survey that you guys are going to see here in a couple weeks are really going to point to that. The next slide that we're looking at here are the top 10 kind of root cause issues that drivers who voluntarily left their position in Q3. These kind of shifted subtly but significantly. We see equipment reliability replace miles, and scheduling is the top frustration in Q3. Personal and family pressures continued to rise, and then operational factors such as poor planning, communication lapses, and recurring breakdowns accounted for nearly half of all of the voluntary quits. Pay rate concerns declined, but inconsistent miles and mechanical downtime continue to erode driver income stability. Drivers really are not just chasing higher pay right now. Based on our feedback, based on what we see in the surveys, they're seeking predictability, they're seeking operational responsiveness, and they're seeking reliability, particularly when it comes to home time. Pay rate does remain a factor, but the primary dissatisfaction within compensation lies really in earning consistency. So miles lost to downtime, scheduling, and detention. It's not cents per mile just in and of itself. Breakdowns, load delays, poor scheduling, consistency, it limits earning potential and it's causing frustration. We're starting to see that. And from an operational standpoint, no response from dispatch or driver managers is back in the top 10 for the first time since the first quarter of this year. And this really aligns more to the broader quarter three feedback that 59% of communication issues stem from internal response gaps, which is a clear driver retention lever. So what I would really tell you there is do not let driver communication go unanswered. Really, at the end of the day, and I've said this before, if you've been on any of these, the drivers do not leave carriers, they leave people. And that communication is a major factor in that. So as I mentioned earlier, equipment and operations together accounted for 48% of all voluntary quits in Q3. So tractor reliability and repair cycle time remains the primary friction point there. Trailer and onboard communication device issues also edged up in the third quarter. And what we're seeing is really, as again, people are cutting costs, we're not purchasing new equipment, so extended trade cycles, and that raises repeat repair exposure, and recurring shop time is directly suppressing miles and perceived pay. What I would tell you really here is how, and we've said this before, and we've seen this in our data, equipment is the one issue that cascades into other issues for drivers. So compensation is strictly compensation, but equipment issues, trucks breaking down, that almost always leads to a driver then complaining about lack of miles or not getting miles because they're in the shop, which then turns into a compensation problem. So always keep that in mind. When you see equipment issues a lot, it's really going down and how that affects that driver's compensation. From an operational standpoint, despite that slight decline in communication, it remains the single largest operations bucket that we see, with 59% rooted in fleet manager dispatch response and internal communication gaps that are affecting drivers. Communication and respect when it comes to the driver side of things are tightly linked. So acknowledgement of driver communication is critical for retention. Clear, concise, consistent communication, providing your drivers with feedback loops is one of the most important aspects of driver retention, particularly in this time when freight is what freight is. Keeping drivers in the planning loop not only goes a long way to reducing driver frustration, but it can also keep that driver from listening to other job offers, which we know are out there. So we did see a rise in customer-related issues that drivers talked about, particularly with loading and unloading delays. That was up 11% from Q2 to Q3. And I think the main thing I would say here, again, kind of goes back to the compensation issue, is this just provides another obstacle for drivers to log consistent miles in this already tough environment. Anything that is preventing a driver from logging consistent miles right now is a contributing factor to turnover. So this is another area where proactive communication with your driver will help reduce frustration, your relationships with your customers, and have the ability to talk to them about maybe what's causing the delays or knowing what's causing the delays. That can affect obviously your turnover. So your customers also play a large role in your retention of your drivers if we're starting to see a uptick in loading and unloading delays. Again, kind of coming back to the consistent miles, and we'll kind of end here. Over 70% of the compensation related complaints in Q3 were related to miles, not cents per mile. Planning variability really makes the driver's income feel unpredictable, which leaves them susceptible to turnover with steady miles promises that are coming from other carriers. When we talk to drivers, particularly in some of the exit interviews that we're doing, a lot of the times we're hearing, hey, well, they promised me this many miles, they promised me that many miles. So those calls are coming. They're getting, I think companies are understanding what the pain point is with drivers right now. So they're trying to offer and promise them steady miles because that is really what drivers are looking for. Going back to our spring driver survey, uh, remember, many drivers have not seen a pay raise during this freight recession. So frustration with pay is clearly pointed towards the inconsistency in the freight market and the effect that it's having on their ability to log miles, but also just that predictability. One of the other things that you're going to see from our driver surveys, we ask them kind of what are your top three priorities right now, or your kind of top three issues, and being able to pay their bills is right up there at the top. So anything that's affecting that driver's ability to make money, to log miles, is really going to be a massive pain point right now. So keep your drivers moving as consistently as possible, and make sure you're setting the driver's expectations appropriately as they're coming through orientation, because that will help minimize the driver's complaints about pay, and particularly about kind of how miles are being run and what's available within the market at this point. So sorry, I don't have a whole lot better news, but that is just kind of the lay of the land right now on the retention front.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Good stuff. I mean, stuff we got to know. We got to know what's happening. So, okay, we are going to wrap up with just some driver data that we have kind of coming out of the driver market. Some other pieces that came out of the driver survey. Again, we'll be releasing that very soon. 52% of drivers who are currently looking for a job said that home time was the number one reason they were searching. So that 56% that was looking for a job, we said, okay, you're looking for a job. Why? Home time. So just something again to keep in mind. A lot of these data points are pointing to home time. So it's definitely, I was talking to someone yesterday here at ATA, and he said, the whole lifestyle of the driver is significantly impacting everything related to recruiting and retention right now. And so any way that fleets can really approach that and look at that are going to, have a leg up, if you will. So also we asked them on the driver survey, what are your top concerns today? Like, you know how we do carrier surveys, like what's keeping you up at night? We asked drivers, like, just what are you concerned about? And these are the top three: work-life balance, paying my bills, health and fatigue, that came up. So again, these are things that just as you're doing your driver check-ins, as your fleet managers are talking to drivers, just maybe just do a check-in on them and just ask them about, how you feeling? How's everything going? Because these are the things that they are really the most concerned about right now. So that could just be just some food for thought for you and your team. Also, we asked them, when you're looking for a new job, what is the most important? And these were the top two. When we release the survey, you'll kind of see the full list. But company stability was number one, which I thought was interesting. And then company reputation with drivers. So again, just knowing, keeping a pulse on what are your driver reviews look like? Are you monitoring those? Are you responding to those? All of those types of things are really important when you think about, what drivers think is the most important when they are searching for a job. Just from a list outside of the typical usual suspects, right? Like outside of home time and pay and equipment, what is most important to you? And so these were two that came up at the top of that list. Also, we always like to provide you with the top keywords from the quarter from all of driver reviews. So when we looked at all the positive driver reviews, these were the top four keywords. When we looked at the top negative reviews, many of these overlap because driver reviews are kind of talking about the same things. When it comes to care, I think that's more like they don't care about me, or man, they really care about me. And so that's kind of where that word comes up. But you could see again, these are nothing's really shocking here. When that word comes up, it's just really relating to them typing a review about how they treat their drivers, or as a driver, this is my experience at this carrier. So that's kind of why that word comes up quite a bit in a lot of these reviews as well. And then this is how the driver review ratings broke down. I always say drivers are super polarizing. They're going to either leave a really great review or not so great. And so this really mirrors that. 33% 5 stars and 33% 1 star reviews. But you can kind of see where those land. Again, just important for you to kind of keep a pulse on that and look at that. All right. Well, that's a wrap on Q3 data rundown. Hopefully you guys got some good data out of that you can take back to your teams and really think about and look at, and when you're looking at kind of your recruiting and retention goals going into this last quarter and then the first part of next year. So,
And the good news is we're not slowing down, because in our next episode, we're going to actually dig into our fall driver survey and share some more recruiting and retention data as we close out the year. And I will tell you, just kind of teasing that a little bit, there is some very interesting data in this survey that really shows, I think, some shifting in what's going on in the market. And I think some things that you guys are really going to be able to hang on to, particularly from the driver's mind, of what's important to them and what is motivating them right now when it comes to looking for a job. If you just watched the rest of this episode, you know that we have a record number of drivers that are looking for jobs based on how we've been following that data over the last couple of years. So you want to make sure and tune in for that.
yeah, that will be great. Plus, we have a couple of other great episodes coming up. We're going to do an episode on AI and recruiting. We're kind of really gearing up with a lot of information on AI and recruiting for our upcoming recruiting and retention conference. That is in Nashville in February. If you haven't registered, go to annualrrconference.com. We're going to be looking at AI through the whole kind of driver journey and how that's playing out. Also, I know, Scott, you'll be sharing some great information there. And it's just a really good event to be able to network and just see what's going on in the driver market. A lot of this stuff is changing so much. We talked a little bit about it in data rundown today, but things are changing so fast, and staying on top of it is super critical. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, great. It's a great conference. I've said this before, and I'm not just saying it because Priscilla and her team put on a great show, but it is the best recruiting and retention conference in the industry. You must be there. You don't want to miss it. Annualrrconference.com. Go and get registered today before it fills up, because it always fills up fast and you do not want to be left out.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to the resource. Be sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss any of those upcoming episodes. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.